Guten Morgen, meine Age Groupies. Welcome back to another episode of the Age Groupies Podcast. I'm Mike Ergo, and along with my co-host Lindsay Hiken, we are here to talk to you about all things related to endurance sports from an amateur athlete perspective. We talk about how to have fun along the way and to stop taking ourselves so seriously all the time. You can follow the show on Instagram at Age Groupies, join our Age Groupies page on Facebook, look us up by name, Lindsay Hiken and Mike Ergo on Strava. If you have any questions, comments, or topic ideas for the show, seriously, guys, hit us up. We want to know your topic ideas, what you want us to talk about. Email us, agegroupies@gmail.com. We check that every day, I promise you. And if you enjoy the show, you know what would help us out? If you actually, seriously, if you actually went on iTunes right now or wherever you get your podcasts and let us have a rating and review, that would help out quite a lot. So I want to give a shout out right now to everyone who participated and finished the second annual Gold Star Triathlon. Congrats to both Michelle Johnson and Simon Williams for winning the triathlon, and congrats to Celeste Elder for winning the 5K. All right, you guys. Today's episode was episode 28, where Lindsay interviewed me, Mike, and we talked about my story and why I race and why I do what I do. Lindsay is off on a much needed vacation right now, much deserved, and so we thought we'd replay this, or I guess beginnings of the Age Groupies Podcast. So enjoy.
Welcome to my show today. I have Mike Ergo. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's so cool to be here with you.
So we've never met before, but we were both on the Ironman Santa Rosa course a couple weekends ago.
Yeah, we probably passed each other somewhere along that
sure.
loops of the run course.
Absolutely. And you reached out to me after my, my race report episode.
Yeah. I listened to it when I saw you put it on there, and what you said about how you turn the relationship around
with alcohol, or
yes, when you're passing the wineries, it's just that epiphany. It brought me to tears, and I was like, that is so cool.
I was so excited about it because you Facebook messaged me, and I loved what you were, because I told my significant other Josh, I was like, oh my gosh, I just got the coolest message. This guy said, I'm a former Marine, and I cried like a baby or something like that. And I was like, oh, I love that. And then of course I saw your video of you carrying the flag for the Gold Star family on the whole marathon. And of course that brought me to tears. So just to kind of let the listeners know a little bit about you, I will say that you run basically a blog and business and podcast called Transitions from War. And you're a former Marine. Is that right?
That is right. Yeah.
Okay.
Marine Corps.
All right. Well, thank you for your service while you were in the military and after, actually, because it seems like this work you're doing now is so important, helping people move from, being in a combat situation to after military and living an active full life, transitioning back into civilian life.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing, as I found that firsthand. And it's one of those things where it feels good for me too. So it's fun to serve. I love it. Mike here. I want to talk to you about UCAN Superstarch. UCAN is what I consume on the race course and for long or intense training sessions. Now, it's different than any sports nutrition out there because they use Superstarch. Superstarch is a complex carbohydrate that doesn't spike blood sugar, delivering a slow and steady release of glucose into the bloodstream. Stable blood sugar provides steady energy to both the muscles and the brain and controls cravings caused by blood sugar lows. I recently used this to complete the Pandemic Man 70.3 using only UCAN, and let me tell you guys, I was surprised by how well it worked, pleasantly surprised. I didn't need to use any gels, anything, just UCAN. And I felt great. I didn't feel bloated, didn't feel hungry, didn't have any of those intense cravings I get on the race course a lot. So I want you to try it out too. Learn about why you should fuel the pursuit with UCAN and save 10% on all your orders by using the link in the show notes or entering the promo code UCANInspire at checkout. That's UCANINSPIREME at checkout. Thanks.
This is a totally separate and different life situation. But with sobriety, it's the same way. Like I've gotten sober and about 15 and a half years ago, and I work with other women who are struggling in getting sober. And that process of like someone helping you heal and then you giving back to that same circle of life is continues my healing process. Actually, I get more out of it, I feel like, than they do, but just being able to help another person walk through what you've already walked through. And I think I'm assuming that for veterans, it's the same kind of thing as alcohol. Like if you're not in it, you might have empathy for it, but you can't really relate because it's a unique experience, and some of the challenges are kind of unique to that thing. And if without doing it, like I can empathize with veterans, but I have no experience what that would be like to re-enter. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your personal journey, in the military and then coming out.
Yeah. And I think, before we go into that, I think there's on some level we can relate to anyone else who has pain on just a basic human level, but you're right. There's so many nuances and so many different situations where it really strikes you if you've experienced the same thing. Mm-hmm. So that's the benefit of you're right, working with another person in recovery. If you're in recovery,
right,
you're like, look, I get it. Yeah. I get it. I get my experience, and I think it's probably similar to yours enough to where I can help you. So I grew up in Walnut Creek in the East Bay, and went in to the Marine Corps right after I finished high school, which took me a couple of months longer than most people. So I actually signed up to be in the band in high school. This is spring of 2001.
Oh.
Yeah, I auditioned and passed with my saxophone. I was going to be in the Marine Corps band. I was all excited. Awesome. And then 9/11 happens, and I said, I think I'd rather serve in the infantry and be a rifleman. And so I did that. I made that switch, and I was stationed out in North Carolina and did a couple of deployments over to Iraq for the beginning of the war in Iraq in 2003, and then again in 2004.
That's a big switch from the band to infantry. I mean, I don't know literally anything about the Marine Corps, but isn't the infantry sort of like on the front line type situation a little bit?
Yeah, that's the guys you're usually seeing in the commercials. The main job is to shoot rifles, throw grenades, go do all the war stuff. That is the primary job of the infantryman.
So you really jumped in. I mean, because the band is so, in some regards, removed from the war type stuff, and you went to a position that's everything.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, and I appreciate your willingness to do that. I mean, not all of us, can or should or are willing, and so that's awesome. So you did 2 tours. What was your experience like? So
the first time we were in Iraq part of the time and on ships most of the time. The Marine Corps always has, the Navy always has a group of ships with Marines on them in 2 parts of the world at any given time, just respond within 24 hours to any kind of world crisis. So we didn't do too much as far as wartime experience, 2003, but the second deployment, we flew over to Iraq, and we were part of what was then called Operation Phantom Fury. It's this big battle in the city of Fallujah, and it was huge scale urban combat. The likes had not been seen since 1968 in Hue City in Vietnam. So it was pretty intense. The short story is I saw a lot, a lot of doors. Survived, came back with all my limbs, just only a little tiny piece of shrapnel on my neck, But I lost a lot of friends. We had 21 guys in my unit who I knew who were killed in action. And after I got back in 2005, I was pretty much a wreck. All the memories and questions started to show up.
Are you prepared? I mean, I know that the military tries to prepare people for what they're going to face and give you guys training. But I mean, is there any way to even mentally prepare you for that kind of thing? I mean, are you just kind of in it and you're doing living second by second and you're not really processing all this stuff mentally at the time? I mean, it just seems like trauma, and I don't know how you would prepare. I mean, it's like, that you're going to face trauma potentially in your position, but how you prepare for that, I can't imagine.
The best I can describe that is, as far as one could be trained, I felt like I was trained really well with the Marine Corps infantry. And we practiced drills so many times to where it became muscle memory. So if we're taking fire from the left, we knew exactly what to do. We knew exactly how to clear buildings. And so most of it we didn't have to figure out in the moment, except for certain situations that you can't really plan for. But you're right. Nothing can really prepare someone fully for combat. Like, oh, this makes complete sense. I get it. And our lieutenant gave us a speech right before we went in, and he said, combat's going to be chaos. So just learn to embrace the chaos. Stop trying to control everything. Control what you can. Keep your guys safe. And in that way, it's helped simplify things. And it's right. It's a lot of reacting and doing, but not too much processing. Right.
Because then on top of all of that, there is the loss of people that you have become close to, I would imagine, throughout the training process. And
and no room to grieve them there, because, that we all understood that would take place later, but right, like in the moment, you have to be there 100%, because if your mind is elsewhere, thinking about other things, you could be a liability to the guys you're serving with. And so more than afraid of getting shot or killed ourselves, the biggest fear, almost to a man, of the guys I talked to in my unit and Marines, servicemen, members in general, is letting down your unit or getting someone else killed. So that service above self was pretty big there. And so that was the big fear. So we're like, all right, we're going to be on point here in our minds, for everyone else.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, put that way, it occurs to me how many mentally tough people there are, because there are a lot of people in the military, a lot of people who've served in kind of positions or, similar situations to you. And the amount of toughness to be able to make it through that is kind of mind boggling a little bit.
Yeah. It's kind of a sink or swim place. And I knew when I signed up, because I grew up upper middle class. Walnut Creek is a really nice place to grow up. Everybody else went to college, as they should have. And I was the only person to join the military from my high school. And I just knew I was like, okay, I need to put myself in a situation where I'm tested and where only I can earn this, because I know I could easily just kind of skate through life without really testing myself. And I just had this moment where, like, if I don't do it now, it might never come, because I might just be comfortable my whole life. Yeah, skate. And so I was like, oh, okay, I better do this now before I wimp out. And so I put myself in this situation.
That's amazing that you did that, because statistically speaking, people who are have the opportunity to skate will tend towards doing that. I mean,
it's human biology.
We
want to be efficient. We don't want to put in more effort than we need to.
I'm going to apologize right now for my dog's barking.
Oh, that's all right. My dogs love doing that too. We're biologically programmed to be energy efficient.
Yeah, no, I agree. And in some ways, because living in Silicon Valley, there's a lot of wealth here around me, and a lot of people who get to spend all day, every day, riding their $12,000 Cervelo bike around or whatever. And sometimes I'm like, man, I got to go to work. And but I think putting yourself in situations where you do have to produce and you have to challenge yourself a little bit actually enhances, your experience as a human on the planet and expands your life, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think if you're familiar with the book Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, he's a Holocaust survivor and wrote that a human's primary driver is to find purpose. It's not to find pleasure. And so, like we see with movie stars or people who are very successful and haven't transitioned to an easier life, they OD, they get divorced, all these things happen because they get there and they're like, well, I'm not happy just being comfortable.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. And I think that's sort of like the short version of like money doesn't buy happiness. It just means that the source of actual true happiness is kind of finding your meaning. And I think challenging yourself is part of that process, and having the sort of trappings of like material wealth or just, having all the resources you need does not meet that standard of like finding your purpose. And,
it's a gilded cage. And now we have to pay for things like Iron Man to put ourselves in uncomfortable situations, right?
Absolutely right. That's absolutely right. So, all right. So going back to the military. You did your 2 tours, and then at some point you got out. What year was that?
I was honorably discharged in the summer of 2005 and drove back across the country from North Carolina back to the Bay Area with my girlfriend, who's now my wife. And I said, all right, I'm ready to be a civilian again. And I started working for my dad's law firm as a clerk and enrolled in Diablo Valley College, a community college, to figure out what I was supposed to do next. And then it was nice getting out for the first few weeks. It was exciting and new. And then I just realized it was like getting off the freeway and just being in the slow lane. I was like, I don't have that same camaraderie with people. I'm not living in a place with 200 other guys who we can talk and relate to each other. We've been through some intense bonding experiences. And it was hard for me to readjust to being in the civilian world.
Yeah, I imagine that it would be. I mean, my grandfather and my uncle, my dad's had a career military, and my grandfather was, old school. He was in World War II in the Army. And back then I don't think they really had any knowledge of like the after effects of war. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so he just sort of like kind of went into himself, if that makes, like he just kept everything bottled up for the rest of his life. And sometimes he'd be like drinking too much or angry, and sometimes he'd be a lot of fun, but it's like there was no processing of what it was like. One minute he's fighting World War II, the next minute he's like on his ranch in Wyoming with his wife and their kids, and it's like just a completely different, you just rip from one world and put in the other. And I can imagine it would be very hard for you to switch gears like that.
It was. And there's so much processing that you do after in your mind, trying to understand. So for the human brain makes decisions of what information is important to take in and what should be filtered out in the moment. And so whatever's going to keep you alive is the information that's going to come in. Right. And then you leave I left the experience of being in combat and war and, pretty heavy urban combat and got out, and my mind started to replay some of the details and started to figure out like, wow, how did I not die? And like with all these situations, what did it mean? What was it for? What do I do now? What do I do with this experience? How do I tell anyone around me what it was like? Because when people come up to me and ask, hey, so you're in the Marine Corps, you're in war. What was that like? I was like, I don't know. What is Earth like? Like, how do you, like a lot of things, it's not like I can't give you a one-liner.
Well, and that's, all of us civilians, all we see is sort of like Hollywood's version of it. Yeah. And that plays is more like exciting than trauma or, especially with urban combat. I would think you're in a very heightened like sense of mortal danger for an extended period of time. And then you're like, okay, well, I'm going to go to the grocery store in Walnut Creek. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
It was
completely
different. And a part of me was really happy that people didn't understand what I had gone through. Cause they don't have to experience that. There's some good parts of my experiences and unpleasant parts of it. But then part of me was very lonely because I couldn't connect with people in that way. I couldn't say, oh, you get it. You see me, you know what that's like. There's a few people I could, but it was even those people, who had gone through combat. I had a neighbor who was a Vietnam vet who ultimately brought me into a vet center to get some help and talk to people. Even when we tried to talk, he's usually with a lot of alcohol to finally get there. And even then it was so intense that as much as I wanted to connect, it's like all roads led back to that trauma and that feeling in my body where I did not feel safe. And so what I was craving was the most dangerous feeling. So it was this weird thing as I couldn't have what I really wanted.
Right. So, well, you mentioned the neighbor who led you to the aftercare help, I guess. So how did that, is that when you started getting help? Is that when you started make a process of recovery, or?
There were bits and pieces. It all came together in 2012, but it started earlier, a couple of years after I was out. I had the neighbor who said, hey, you look like I did when I got back from Vietnam. I'm going to take you to a place where there's other veterans where you can talk to. It's called the Vet Center. It's part of the VA. So I went there only because, I respected him. And and I wanted to honor him by going. He vouched for it. So I was like, well, first of all, counseling's stupid. I'm a Marine and I'm a man, so we don't do that. So that's for little babies. And I went there and I actually started to feel better. And I didn't understand. I think with trauma, you don't understand what's happening. Your brain doesn't say, oh, this is trauma. It's just chaos. It's chaos in your head. You don't feel safe to be in your body, and nothing feels good. And it's just confusion and anger and flashes of memories of things that happened that were unpleasant. And so once I started to understand that what was happening, got an understanding, it took the mystery away of the chaos in my life. And then I was able to start being able to hold my own feelings and process trauma. So, awesome. But I was still drinking for, 5 more years. So I'd have these little shining spots of clarity, these moments of clarity. And then it'd be like, oh, this is too much. I opened the door and a lot's coming out. So then I would run back and retreat into the bottle or into a bowl of cannabis for pills or whatever would stop feelings.
I can relate to that for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have the trauma of war. I just had the trauma of like a bad divorce or whatever. And years of pain. Yeah, no, that's true. And it's that moment of like, without my little sort of, I don't even know how to explain it, but like my little wall of chemicals around me.
Yeah.
If I had a couple of days sober or something, I would start realizing my reality, which had pain in it. And it's like, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. So I'm going to just, the best thing I can do is check out.
Yeah, check out. Exactly. Alcohol is my go-to. It let me be able to be around people. It was socially acceptable. And I learned how to drink in the Marine Corps. Definitely. It's a time-honored tradition there.
Sure.
But cannabis, I'd say, was something that I think it can be a good thing for people who know how to use it responsibly. Right. I was not that person, but what it did for me was it gave me these moments of where my shoulders could drop, and I was like, oh, I can just sit here. I don't have to be doing so. I can just sit here and relax, and I don't feel like I'm about to die. And that was great. That was great. I was like, I can feel like I'm alive. Neat. And the cost outweighed the benefits after a while. And my life got smaller because I'd spend more and more time drinking or smoking. And I would lie to people, I cheat on my wife. I do all these things like to just feel good. And it wasn't improving the quality of my life. I was starting to resent who I had become, comparing it to who I used to be. And it wasn't having the intended effect.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was almost like, there was a person prior to the alcoholism that I knew had potential, but that with the alcoholism, like I wasn't reaching any potentials. I was constantly disappointed in my own decisions, like you were saying, affairs and what, I got divorced, but I have to admit, I wasn't like a perfect wife, then got divorced and became an alcoholic. I was an alcoholic or a budding alcoholic wife who was an awful wife and then got divorced. And then my drinking really picked up. That's the reality of the situation. And that whole way, it's like an out-of-body experience because there's this other Lindsay that's the real Lindsay inside who's like, well, we can do better than this. You know what I mean? You have morals, you have ethics, you have, you have values, and you're not, and I wasn't paying any attention to any of those. And it's all just self-medicating. At least it seems like to me, like it's whatever hurt or, trauma or whatever. And it's like a Band-Aid over a wound that's festering eventually.
Yeah. It's not adequate. It's on the spot, but making it worse in the long term. And, people talk about not liking what they see in the mirror. I would literally look in the mirror and see the tattoo that I had, Semper Fidelis, the Marine Corps motto, always faithful. And I'd be like, oh, what a lie this is. I'm not always
right.
And I just would be further disappointed and be like, I need to get drunk to get rid of this feeling. So eventually things.
Yeah, I absolutely right.
Yeah, exactly. 2012, I had both a spiritual awakening, and it was interesting. I got to this epiphany, this spiritual awakening, this mental clarity through one of the path that got me there was edible cannabis. believe it or not, because when you ingest cannabis edibly, it changes and it becomes much more hallucinogenic, and all your unconscious comes out. The stuff that alcohol would keep away, this would come to the forefront.
Showed up.
Yeah. And all these thoughts like, wow, you're
Ooh.
going to die someday. These are ways where you're lying about who you are versus what you actually do. And, all these things came up that I didn't want to look at, but I had to. And I eventually came to a point where I realized that there's something I can do more than this. I owe it to the people who died to live a good life. And so I talked to my wife and I said, look, I'm doing a lot more drugs and drinking a lot more than I've let on. I've lied to you. I've been unfaithful to you. Like, here's who I am. And I'm sorry that I have to vomit this up to you right here. You just got home from work, but
oh my gosh,
I don't know what else to do. Yeah. So she puts down her keys like, wait, what?
Wow.
She went to her mom's for a little bit, and she called me later that day and said, I know you're a good person inside, and I know you, because she knew me. We grew up together. We knew each other since middle school. She's like, I know who you are, and this is not who you are, but I can't go down this road with you. So you need to make a choice, not a drop more alcohol, no drugs, nothing of that, or this is over. And so I thought in my mind, oh my God, like living sober, like actually feeling all these feelings.
What the F is that? Yeah.
Awful experience. But I said, you know what? I knew I loved her. And I was like, so I think only an addict or an alcoholic can really understand, what that means to decide to give that up. The only thing that makes you feel good. And so I said, oh, okay, I'm going to do that. Yeah. And so I started, I had a Marine Corps friend I met afterwards who brought me to a 12-step group and got involved in the recovery community. And first 6 months, a year were rough, just raw feelings, doing a lot of therapy. But I realized I could confront my fears instead of running from them. I could lean into them and realize that, fear is also something, a beacon showing me what my heart's desires are, like something I want to do, but I just am terrified of. So I can lean in instead of run away. And that made all the difference in terms of how I dealt with physical sensations and memories and thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. I had a similar experience. They say, if you take an alcoholic or an addict and you put, total loss of everything that's important to you, maybe possibly your sanity and death on one side of the scale, or giving up the drug of choice on the other side of the scale, like only an alcoholic or an addict would be like, can I get back to you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I think about it.
The mind is trying to work around this, the mind.
How can I have
a little? Yeah, I can still do this. I can still have both. And you're like, no, you can't. You cannot.
And exactly. And to someone who hasn't kind of gone through that, it's hard to see why you would ever. That's not a real choice. I mean, it doesn't seem like a real choice to people. But the unfortunate part of the disease is that it becomes an actual question. Like, can I give this up to have everything that I actually love and want in my life? And I'm very happy for you that you were able to kind of pick the right side of the scale to land on instead of.
It was the same thing, the same kind of moment of clarity like I had when I joined the military. Someone argued that it's not a moment of clarity. But I said, it's now or never. This is the chance I have while I'm thinking clearly of what I actually want to do. So let's choose this before I wimp out and stick to it. And it took a while before I started feeling good in my own body. But what really happened is I had a friend, my good friend Chris, that I'd grown up with. For my 30th birthday, I've been in recovery less than a year. He got me a registration for a half marathon, which at the time, I thought, like, that's not a present. Yeah. That's not a present. I don't want to do this. But I did it. And it was a great way to harness my ego so I could complete something that was good for me. And training from it, I still remember going around the corner of this neighborhood that I was running in. And after a couple of weeks, when all the aches and pains kind of subsided, I felt like, oh, I feel good. I actually felt safe in my own body. I felt okay to be here. Yeah. And that was something I'd not felt in years, like years and years and years. And so was such a refreshing feeling. And I said, maybe there's something to this exercise and running and working out. So, expanded from there.
So that was, would you say that was 2012? No.
2012 and 2013.
Okay.
When I started really actually working out in 2013 and figuring out, okay, maybe this is a good part of my life to
Focus
include.
on.
Focus.
So how did you get from a half marathon that your friend bought you the entry for all the way to, and I want to talk about what you're doing, with the Gold Star families and stuff, but how did you get from half marathon to Ironman? Like what was that path like?
Another Vietnam vet came into my life, and I'd tell every single Vietnam vet that I see, like, first of all, welcome home. You guys didn't get a great welcome home, but and second of all, I owe so much of who I am now to your generation and your brothers and sisters in arms, because this other vet comes up to me, and so I'm clean and sober. I'm working at a vet center where I started getting help.
Oh, cool.
I got my degrees in social work from UC Berkeley, and
awesome.
I was working there, and this guy comes in. He's like, "Hey, so I have this idea. I've done this with Boy Scouts before, where we do this swim from Alcatraz to Aquatic Park in San Francisco. It's about 1.25 miles long, a little more, depending on the tides. And I want to get a group of vets to do this." And he's like, "What do you think?" I said, "That sounds stupid. It sounds awful." I was like, "It's cold. There's sharks. I hate swimming. So no, and no." And so again, he in such a subtle way, I love this. He just said, "Okay, I get it. These Boy Scouts are earning their merit badges, and it's fun for them. And so, but I get it if it's something that you don't feel you're able to do." And for a man, he's like, this guy just called me out. So,
yeah.
Of course, I was going to do it. There was no other choice. So Team Heart wants to go in a good way. And I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to hate it the whole way, but then it'll be a great check in the box. And
yes,
I loved it. And even more than running, swimming, and especially swimming in cold water, the thoughts would stop. If I was depressed, jump in freezing water, I'm like, oh my God, it's cold. And that's the only thing you can think about. And then you find your breath. So I found my breath. I found the rhythm of swimming. And I said, oh, I feel good. I can be in my own body right here. And I feel great. I feel great. I love doing this. It was my introduction into finding my breath and really being present in the moment. And so I loved it. I loved cold water swimming. I love swimming. And then after that, I said, well, this is cool. Where do I go from here? But the big moment came. I happened to be on vacation on the Big Island of Hawaii with my wife and her family. And what I now no longer believe is a coincidence. It was the same weekend as Kona, the Ironman World Championships. Yeah, this all came together, and I was looking at these people riding their bikes around before the race, and on the race day, I watched them on the bike course, and I felt that familiar fear. It was like, oh, holy crap, this is terrifying. Why would you go so long? And then I turn into anger. Why would people do this and sign up for something like this? This is awful. It's a confusing feeling, but then I realized, wait a second, that's the same fear that means it's something I need to lean towards and see what there is here before I just completely run away. And so I signed up for a half Ironman because it's like, I've done the length of the run. I've done the length of the swim. I learned how to ride a bike as a kid, so I'll just work on that. And so I got back and signed up for at the time, what was the Vineman 70.3. Yeah. So I did
What year was that?
Yeah, I raced in 2015.
I'm trying to think if I was there in 2015. I think I did 12, 13, 14. I'm trying to remember.
It was the first year that Ironman had bought it, and so it was an Ironman race. I think before that it was
just Vineman.
Just Vineman, yeah. Along the way, though, I was like, okay, working out's cool, exercising's cool. I'll get in shape. My body will feel better. My mind will feel better. And I watched a clip that Ironman put out on a woman named Lisa Hallett, who was invited to Kona and raced that same year that I was on the Big Island watching them. And they invited her to race there because she had lost her husband in Afghanistan, and he was a soldier. And so to deal with that, she just one day said, I can't just sit in my grief. And she just went for a run. And that turned into creating an organization called Wear Blue, Run to Remember. And she had created this community of people who would lost people in the military and honored them by wearing their names on their shirt and dedicating workouts and races to them. And I cried so hard watching that. And it was like this good relief that I said, oh, I can combine these things. I can combine these things where I don't have to hide from the feelings. I can feel all the feelings and it actually will be totally okay. And I know by doing this, I'll be honoring their memories. And so I got a triathlon jersey, all his names. I had 29 guys on that list by that time because more died since. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do to honor their families and honor their memory. And it's like, and I said, okay, now I have purpose. I have a mission again in life. And it's not just waking up each day and saying, all right, well, what do I do now? It's, this is like, I have something to look forward to. I have something I love doing, and it's for a good reason, a good cause. And yeah, so I did race my first race at my first long distance race in Vineman half. And then I did a couple more the next year, Oceanside and Santa Cruz. And by that time I had some friends that said, you should sign up for a full Ironman. I said, that's quite the jump. And I was terrified. You know, it's like, but I signed up at their recommendation, you know, talked it over with my wife. I said, here will be the training schedule. And, you know, is this going to make sense for her family? And she saw that it would make sense for our family. She knew that who I was as an athlete was better than who I was without that. And so the family time was better quality. Right. So it was that weird, you know, that balance we all have to find. Yeah. It's going to be time away, but then the time there hopefully will be better with the family. And it was. Right. Yeah. So I did Ironman Santa Rosa as my first full in 2017. Okay. And then. Was that in July that year? Was it still July? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Was it hot that year? I wasn't there that year. It wasn't bad. No, it wasn't bad at all. I think I only got up in the 80s, you know, and I loved it. It can be, yeah. It can get warm. That's not too, yeah, yeah. So how'd it go when your first one? I loved it. Everything worked out great. I mean, the swim felt great. Swam faster than I thought. Some of the bike, I stuck to my nutrition plan. I was using Hammer Perpetuum, their endurance fuel, and loved it. Didn't get any cramping, bloating, any GI issues. And the run, I felt good the whole time. And I was waiting to hit this wall and it didn't come. I was like, all right, cool. So it was a perfect day, you know, a perfect day. Awesome. Just, yeah. And by that time, Ironman, they called me 2 weeks before and said, hey, so, you know, we're racing here. Or excuse me, we were looking at your registration of why you race. Cause I filled that part out. Why do you know, why are you such a crazy person signing up for an Ironman? Right. Is the question. Yeah. And I told them my story. I said, I'll take a chance and actually put some intention into this. And so like, okay, cool. Well, we want to get you some, we want to tell your story on this podcast. And it was this veteran podcast. And so on that podcast, you know, I told my story again to this guy, and Ironman had it all planned out. And they said, well, I bet you wish, you know, racing these Ironmans, you'd have a bigger platform to be able to tell your story. And I explained, yeah, I do, because I think other people would benefit from it. But the only thing bigger than a full Ironman, you know, is this World Championships in Kona. And you have to be pretty elite to do that. I'm nowhere near that. And they surprised me on the show. They said, well, that's funny, because Ironman wanted to let me know that you're going to Kona this year. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I said, don't mess with me here. He's like, no, you're going to Kona. And I was getting these texts from people in Ironman, like, it's real. So I said, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Wow. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, were you terrified? So this was race end of July, and then you're going to race in October, that October? Yeah. So Kona's going to be my second full Ironman, right? And it's only like what, a few months apart, 5 months away. Yeah. Barely. The end of July. So I have August, September, and half of October to recover and train up for a tough one. But I said, you know what, I believed in the purpose. I believed in, it felt like a sort of a divine intervention, some universal forces at work that I didn't understand, but I was trusting. Yeah. I said, you know what, I'm here for a reason, and I'm going to do it. And I know that even if it gets hard, I'm decided right now that I'm not going to quit. So it's just dealing with being tired and hurting. That's all it is. And
Yeah.
When it's like, if I want to simplify it, that's all it is.
No, it's true. It's true. That's amazing. Okay. So is that when the Gold Star, is it called Gold Star Foundation? No.
The Gold Star Initiative.
Okay.
That started last year at Santa Rosa. So about a little over a year ago.
Oh, so after you did Kona.
Yeah. After Kona, I signed up for Ironman Santa Rosa again. It's like a hometown race. Got to do it. Love it here.
I just want to say really quickly before we get into that, because I'm really excited about that, and I'm going to share the video with everybody in the show notes. But I do want to hear quickly about like your experience at Kona, being such a new to the sport in general and new to Ironman. That's a big one.
It was. I hate it when people say it was surreal, but like
But it was surreal.
Yeah, my eyes were open. My jaw was dropped the whole time. I was walking around, be like, "Hey, Mike, I want you to meet Dave Scott and Mark Allen." Oh, hi. I'm meeting John Frodeno and Daniela. I'm meeting all these people.
Wow.
I'm meeting all of these people in the sport, and they're like, "Hey, I'm excited to meet you. Thank you." And I met Mike Riley, who sent me an email. He's like, "I'm excited to call you across the finish line." And Mike Riley, hello. So it was all of these things happening in a very short time. And I just stayed in the moment. I said, this is really cool. I'm going to be right here and take away, the feelings of unworthiness of being there surfaced because I'm not an elite athlete. I'm not finishing an Ironman in under 10 hours, under 9 hours, like all these people. But I said, you know what, this is about the story. It's about the opportunity for other veterans and Gold Star families to heal. And I am an ambassador to that. And so it's a bigger cause. And I said, on behalf of that mission, I'm going to fully own being here. I'm going to fully allow myself to be here. And
that's awesome.
It was so fun. It was so fun. I wasn't nervous about the race because I did something, I read it in a book Mark Allen had wrote. It's called Fit Soul, Fit Body, and where he talked about the spiritual connection to triathlon that helped him win Kona. And one thing he did was a couple of days before the race, go to one of these sites where a Hawaiian temple used to be, and left an object that was significant to him, and left it there in the altar, basically asking for safe passage on the island from the spirits there, and asking for just permission to be there on their land. And I did the same thing. I brought a rock from the Yuba River where I go to up in the Sierras, where for me, it's been a place where I literally wash away unworthiness. I jump in and stay in there and just have this really deep connection with that spot. And so I brought a little granite rock and I put it there and I said, okay, now I'm ready.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Give me chills.
Yeah. I said, this is happening. This is happening. And next day I wake up, go to the race, and I'm doing a little pre-race meditation and just finding my breath, connecting, focusing my energy. And I opened my eyes and Jan Frodeno's right there stretching. I was like, oh, this is so cool. Swim was great. It was, you get to look at tropical fish and turtles. It was so cool. I didn't have the race jitters because it was at a certain point, it was a few years before Ironman too, that I had so much race jitters. And I realized one day, and it's the only time I've had an epiphany during a meditation, but I realized that, my body's getting ready to go on a mission. My body is getting ready for combat. This is what trauma is. This is not about this race. And once I had that, I said, oh, okay, that's that trauma anxiety. That can be there. It's leftover war stuff. And it was still there, but the difference is it didn't ramp up, because with anxiety, you're like, oh my God, I feel anxious. I feel nervous. And your mind goes, something bad must be about to happen. And then more anxiety, more nerves, more thoughts. And so it stopped it right there. So I had that.
I even used I haven't had anxiety about a race in a long time. I've been doing it for about 9 years. And so my first couple of races, anxiety about it. And then I just kind of was like, whatever. But before this Ironman, of course, I had anxiety in the days leading up to it. I'd have like that thing in the pit of my stomach and the butterflies. And I had read a book by Mel Robbins called The 5-Second Rule. And she says, if you just count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it actually disrupts this, like the process your brain's going through, gives you an opportunity to insert another thought. And so every time that those bubbles would come up in my stomach or whatever, or my heart would kind of skip a beat, I would 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and basically just reframe that physical feeling from fear to excitement. I'm excited to go race. This is fun. This is what I want to do, as opposed to like, and because I was able to do that, it didn't escalate. And by the time race day came, I was fine. I slept well the night before. It was amazing. Just the brain, getting it under control. Like,
it's harnessing your awareness, because one of the biggest gifts I've received is that when I realized that anxiety and the fear is there, something happened where I learned that there's also an equal amount of excitement. And for whatever reason, I have the picture of the medical symbol with the two snakes that are interwoven around the staff there. And I think, okay, one of those is fear and one of those is excitement. Let's just notice the excitement, because that's equally there. My body and my mind and my spirit, they're excited to do something really great and harness that. And so, and because that's equally there too. And so what's so cool about endurance sports is we get to reframe the relationship we have with feelings and thoughts, and reframe our willingness to feel difficult things or feel uncomfortable.
Yes, absolutely. That's been a key one for me. So to fast forward a little bit, you did Kona, and then you signed up again for Santa Rosa. So that would be 2018. So last year.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's when the flag happened, or?
That's when it started. And it was just pure kind of inspiration, intuition. They asked me, they're like, okay, so we're doing since this is the 40th year of Ironman, we're making a big campaign. It's, they called it 40 Years of Dreams. And they said, you're part of very recent Ironman history. So we want you to be the ambassador for this race. And
awesome.
I said, wow. Okay. Yes. And they said, what do you want to do as the ambassador for this race to put your own unique mark on it? And I was thinking, it just came up. It made sense on a level deeper than just cognitive reasoning thought. I want to carry a flag for a Gold Star family for the whole marathon. And they said, can you do that? It was like, yes. And I can do that. I know I can do that. I mean, previously I'd carried a flag during a race for about 8 miles. I was like, okay, I know how to do that. But more of it was like, this is the purpose to it. There's the purpose, and the purpose is my why is what's going to help me do this.
Yes.
And so I said, if I decide I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, because I know that it's going to help make somebody happy and help them feel loved and connected. And so I found a family in the area in Santa Rosa, and I asked her, would you consider giving me permission to honor your family and your son? And this is a young man by the name of Joshua Kynock, who died in October of 2005 in Iraq while he was serving in the army. As I said, I noticed that Gold Star families had, like after the funeral and this initial support they got from the community, a lot of times get shunned because people are just uncomfortable. Nobody knows what to say to them. And so they said, I kept talking to these Gold Star moms, and they're saying, people avoid me now, and it's weird. Like, I didn't do anything, but now they see me and they see this dead son or daughter, and it's just too uncomfortable for them. And now I've lost a lot of friends who just don't want to talk to me. I said, that sucks. That doesn't need to be. So I said, well, what if we brought everything together and something I love doing and purpose and Ironman's like, yeah, let's make them, give them VIP passes. They can be there. We can honor them and invite them into the community. Cause there's nothing like that race day vibe of high five, encouragement. I was like, they can be part of this. And and for me, it helped me deal still with survivor's guilt of why did I make it back and my friends didn't. And the Gold Star moms that I talked to after I gotten back and gotten sober were saying, no, I'm glad you're home. I'm happy you're home. And I was able to let go of that guilt that really didn't belong to me in the first hand. I was like, vets need to have this. Vets need to let go of that guilt that's holding them back from reaching their potential and being who they need to be. So it all just kind of came together like that. And I carried the flag for Linda, Kaina. That was Josh's mom, and Josh's daughter, Savannah, was there too. And she was 13. She didn't even know her dad because her dad was killed a few days after she was born. He'd met her for maybe a day or two and had to go back to Iraq. And so so I saw her, and I just remember when I saw her at the finish line, I gave them the flag. I said, I remember I had never experienced love like I experienced when my daughter was born a few years ago, that I loved to the extent I didn't know was possible. And it was terrifying. It was so powerful. And I told her, I was like, look, I know that your dad had that same experience when you were born, and I know he still loves you, and that connection's still there. And I was like, I think this was the reason I was supposed to do this, to let her know that. And it felt great. The community was behind it. Everybody was saying, well, what can we do to help this out? Can we do this again? And there was just all these questions of what do we do? Where do we go next? And so I did it again for Santa Rosa Half in the summer with another family. And then I asked Ironman, can we make this a national thing where other vets can do this with other Gold Star families? And so they said yes. So now it's part of the Ironman Foundation. We started off 4 races in 2019 at Oceanside, Santa Rosa Full and Half, and then at Super Frog in San Diego, we'll have a vet carrying a flag or racing with the Gold Star family. Awesome. And then in 2020, it's going to expand across the country to other races. And
I mean, look at going back to you saying about, the survivor's guilt, feeling that, how come I'm here and this other people aren't? I mean, this is a reason. Look at, it's like this ripple effect from you doing this one race out across the country. And that is, and drawing attention to these families that do need, continued and ongoing support and community and deserve it and should have it. I mean, that's just so powerful.
One of the things that really struck me while I was doing this is I had these thoughts of doubt. I said, nobody's going to care about this. This is not something that it's not a big deal. Who are you to try to do something like this? All of these thoughts of unworthiness. And those all came up. And I said, okay, that's in my mind. These are thoughts. I see those thoughts, but I also feel a deeper sense of this on my heart of, even though it's scary to do something like this is on my heart. And I feel it so strongly that it's something that should be done. So I'm going to do it regardless of all these thoughts in my head. And that was what made the difference for all of this stuff. Like listening to my heart and listening to a deeper intuition and connecting to a purpose, even though all these doubts were still there. Like, can I run a full marathon with a flag? I don't know. Like my head's like, you never done that. What if you drop the flag, right? What if you don't finish and you're a big turd and what a disappointment. So I said, all right, okay, thoughts. You're welcome to be here too, but I'm going to stick with my purpose.
Right. And I think having that big why is obviously a big help. And, I like your description of having the thoughts of like, who are you to do this? But it's like, well, why not you? You're a vet. You know what I mean? You survived that. You survived combat. You survived alcoholism. You got sober. I mean, all of that work you didn't do just to sit around.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like that's not what share it with the world. And that's what you're doing. And it's amazing to be able to do that, I think. And so I saw the video of you handing the flag, and I have to say I cried like a child because it's just, it's so touching on many levels. Just, I'm a sucker for Ironman finishes, period.
They're so good.
They're all good, right? But I did see you like reaching down, and I guess it was Savannah or the girl that you handed the flag, and we're talking. There was a young girl there, and that in and of itself, I mean, just really touched me. And I thought I was touched by your desire to like reach out and help other people. I think no one would fault you for wanting to just spend the rest of your time trying to recover from all you've already been through. You know, you've already done service to this country and you've had to recover from that. And I don't think anyone would fault you for being like, I'm going to have some, you know, a little bit of me time for the rest of my life, you know.
Yeah.
But the fact that you haven't done that, I was deeply touched by that. In looking at your website and blog and podcast and stuff, and it's just a I don't know if this came first or after you started racing, but it seems like a continuation of that kind of thought of being out, reaching out to other vets and helping.
It is. That's at our core. I mean, we're social creatures who desire that deep bond. And that's what I missed from the military. That's what I realized. It wasn't, you know, stacking bodies or, you know, shooting rockets, or it wasn't any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. The thing I missed was being so close to people and having shared purpose. And I was like, oh, this brings meaning. This feels good. And so to have that in a different way, be able to feel that again, it makes the races so much more fun. So it's not, it doesn't have to be an either or thing. You know, before I thought of service as like, okay, well, dig ditches, pick up trash, things I hate doing. I was like, this is service through sport is the Ironman Foundation's motto. And I love it. It's just, it makes the race so much more fun. I was more excited to race Ironman Santa Rosa last year when I first did this and this year than I was Kona. And I was, don't get me wrong, I was very excited to race Kona.
Yeah, of course.
And that's the level of excitement I have now because of this. And with the thing I realized with my new relationship with fear and with grief and with uncomfortable feelings is that it's all energy. And even though it's unpleasant energy, it's something that can be used and harnessed. And I needed to share that with other people, because if we let this energy, this negative or unpleasant energy, the sensation hit us like a fire hose and knock us down, then we're stuck. But if we can learn to ride along with it and let it be there, I mean, the grief and uncomfortable feelings, unpleasant feelings, it's my fuel. It propels me forward. And so when I realized that it didn't have to keep me back, it actually was a strength. I was like, I'm not the first person to realize this, but I don't think too many people know about this around here. And I was like, well, all these vets I know, all these Gold Star families that are hurting, they don't know how powerful they are, how much that is a direct connection to their heart, how much that taps into their purpose. And so it's actually an advantage.
Mm-hmm. And I noticed on your site, you've got two sort of things where vets can join you. I saw it said 3 steps to your first triathlon. And then there's also a daily meditation challenge. And I love that you are helping other people find, you know, strength and freedom from all of this, you know, not that you don't feel fear, but that you've, you know, learned how to face it. Not freedom from fear, but I would say freedom from the bondage that can be fear.
I think it's freedom from the unwillingness to feel fear. The freedom. Yes. It's like, this can be here. It's okay. Cold water is fine. You know, being tired is fine. It's there, you know?
Yeah, I relate on a different level, but I absolutely relate. And I will say that, like, I've had these experiences of feeling less than. I think mine stems more from being a minority and a female, than anything else. But I've had these moments of feeling very unsure of myself and whatever. And then had the flip side of like being in a race, and especially in the swim. That happens a lot in the swim, where I'm like, oh my gosh, look at you. You're out here in the middle of this vast body of water and you're doing it. And like, you know, you didn't think you could do anything like this. So maybe the other things that you don't think you can do, like maybe that's just a story you're telling yourself too, you know, and that's opened up my world.
Well, how many great people have you read about or talked to who also say, I have all these self-doubts and I don't think I'm the person, and they have these same voices. So, well, maybe it is the case then that this idea of the archetype of, you know, a successful, great person having no doubts and just being totally sure of themselves the whole time is not accurate.
Right.
Maybe they're the people who just decide that, okay, that's there. cool, good story. I'm going to go ahead anyways.
Yeah, because I think I used to think there are people who were doing things in life that were fearless, like they did not have fear of whatever, and that's how they were able to do it. And through recovery and endurance sports, I've realized that's not it. It's what you're saying. There's fear there, but they are going to face that and do the thing anyway, as opposed to fearless. Because I was always trying to get to a state where there was like that, like the absence of fear, then I'll do it.
Right. Then you're not a human.
No, exactly. And being a fear-based alcoholic, I mean, I was never going to get there. That's not going to happen. My default button is like gloom and doom. So, but you know, it's interesting because when you are willing to kind of accept fear as just a part of the experience and be like, oh, this is just part of the thing, it immediately shrinks it. Yep. At least that's been my experience. So that, you know, even what I think is like, you know, for Ironman, for my first one, this last 2 weeks ago, it was like big, scary monsters. And I thought, oh my gosh, you know, what's going to happen on the run? I mean, am I just going to fall apart? I mean, I had, you know, friends of mine sent me video clips of people crawling and they've gone to the bathroom all over themselves. And I was like, well, I can tell you right now, my goal is to cross the finish line with my dignity intact and not having gone to the bathroom myself. But I still had this sort of like, what if in my head. And, but then I just was like, well, I'm doing it. I'm going to do it. So I guess I'll find out. And once I kind of went that route, it was like all that other stuff just kind of, and at mile 24 on the run, I was like, hey, still not crawling, still haven't, you know, lost control and I'm, you know, I'm okay. So, isn't
that a cool thing where you realize this is really going to happen?
Yeah.
Oh, that finish line and that shoot.
Yeah.
So cool. It is so cool. I mean, the whole race is cool.
Yeah.
You know, if you can be present with it, but that finish line, when you've watched so many videos of people doing it, they're like, wow, can I do this? And then you finally get to experience that too. Magical.
Awesome. Yeah. I absolutely agree. And it's even better than you can, for me, at least, it was better than I could even envision it being. I mean, for years, I've had this image, you know, in my head of me crossing the finish line for years and years, but the actual feeling of doing it, surpassed, you know, anything I could even imagined. And that's why I say, you know, I had originally was like, I'm a one and done. And now I'm like, no, I'll probably do that again.
Perusing online. Whoa.
So a couple things. What would you suggest if there are vets who are kind of in the situation you were in previously? Like, what would you suggest that they do? I mean, reach out to you, or how would they go about kind of starting the process of?
I think it begins with the willingness to look at what's there and the acceptance of what's happening inside of you and to be real with someone. I'm happy to talk to people and connecting with social media or by email. Mm-hmm. And it can be a friend, it can be a spouse, it can be a counselor, you know, in the VA or a private therapist, someone, a pastor, a spiritual leader. Being real with someone opens that. And once you do that and realize that, okay, all of this ugliness and uncomfortable things they're here, that's a gateway to noticing what's really on your heart. And it is fully within all of us to do this. Mm-hmm. Everything that you face, you have enough. You have what it takes to get through anything. And that goes for every single person. And so once you can trust that enough to take that first step and talk to someone, talk to yourself, then that admission of, okay, this is really where I am. It is that first is such a big step. Yeah,
no, I agree. And I appreciate you kind of having set up the infrastructure to guide people, you know, at least in terms of, you know, being an example. I am going to put your information about your website and your podcast and link to the video of you crossing the line with finish line with the flag in the show notes. So people will be able to reach out to you definitely through that. And then the last thing I want to ask you before we wrap it up is, what's next? Do you have any endurance challenges happening or challenges in your life, or like, what are your next goals?
Well, I'll be doing the Santa Rosa 70.3 this summer. I'll be doing Ironman 70.3 Xiamen in China in November.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that'll be fun. And of course, I'm going to do Santa Rosa for a fourth time next year. I have thoughts, and I've actually entertained it by asking someone who has done one, talking about Ultraman. Which is
I have a teammate doing the Ultraman Alaska this year.
Yeah.
Oh, Hawaii and Alaska.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm looking at that. Ultraman to go even longer. And who knows, that might be 2021.
All right.
And for now, I'm just trying to raise money for this Gold Star initiative. And I was fortunate enough to get a sponsor, a coffee company owned by vets called Tatter Beans.
Oh, yeah.
They do something really cool that every bag they sell, you buy it through an envoy. Like which vet do I want to support? And so people can buy coffee through my profile, and all that money from the sale of the coffee, $4 of every single sale, will go towards this Gold Star initiative that I'm raising money for. It's part of the Ironman Foundation.
So we can put a link for that too. Can we?
Yeah.
Okay, definitely. Awesome. Oh, amazing. That's great.
The cool thing is, it's like, unlike making extra donations, if you love coffee, even half as much as I do, that's all you have to do is just drink more coffee.
I'm down with that. It's not a problem for me.
I was surprised to see it was actually good coffee, because I was worried at first. I was like, okay, they're from Pennsylvania. Do they even
like, what's this coffee?
Exactly. We're from California. We're Bay Area. We got high standards for coffee, and
that's right.
It met them. I'm pleased to report. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah, I'm going to order some of that myself. That sounds awesome. I don't need to give money to the Starbucks Corporation when I can give it to Gold Star Family and get my coffee going in the morning.
It feels good. It's a win-win.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm so happy that you reached out to me, and that I could connect with you and share your story a little bit more. I'm sure my listeners are going to, I know my listeners are going to be so stoked on this episode, because I just posted the video clip of you on my Facebook page, and I had so many comments like, we can't wait for this episode. So
that's why that guy was carrying the flag. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Cause people, they don't necessarily know exactly why, if they're standing, so this is, cause I had a few people say, oh my gosh, I saw him out there. I didn't know what was going on. So, I'm super, super excited to be able to share it. And I appreciate all you've done for the country and all that you're doing for, vets now that you are a civilian. And, I'm sure I will see you out on the race course.
Thank you, Lindsay. And if there are any vets or Gold Star families who want to be part of this, this is not just Mike Ergo carrying a flag. This is supposed to be for any vet, any active duty military service member, or any Gold Star family to be a part of. And so I'll give you the link for that. They can sign up to take part in the Gold Star initiative.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lindsay. This is fun.
All right. Bye.